time, people have been fascinated by the story of Atlantis, a great city or empire that was said to have sunk under the sea. The first person to tell this story was the Greek philosopher Plato, more than 2,000 years ago. Since then, it has become one of the biggest mysteries in history. People have asked again and again, was Atlantis real, or was it just a story made up to teach lessons? Plato wrote about Atlantis around 360 BCE in two of his works called Timaeus and Critias. He said that Atlantis was a huge island, bigger than Libya and Asia Minor put together, and that it was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is what people in his time called the Strait of Gibraltar. According to Plato, Atlantis existed about 9,000 years before his time, which would place it around 9,600 BCE. He described it as rich, powerful, and very advanced, with amazing buildings and skilled sailors. But he also said that the people of Atlantis became greedy and proud. They started wars and tried to take over Athens. As punishment for their behavior, the gods caused earthquakes and floods that sank Atlantis into the ocean in a single day and night. Plato did not present this as a fantasy, but claimed it came from Egyptian priests, passed on to the Greek statesman Solon, and then finally to him. This story has left people wondering whether Plato was telling history or creating a myth. Many scholars believe that Atlantis was just a symbol in his philosophy. Plato often used imaginary stories to explain deeper ideas about morality, politics, and human nature. To them, Atlantis was a warning about what happens when nations become too greedy and lose their sense of justice. But some argue that the level of detail Plato included was unusual for a simple metaphor. They believe he may have used parts of real stories or events from much earlier times. There are real civilizations and disasters that might have inspired Plato. One example is the Minoan civilization, which lived on the island of Crete in nearby places around 2000 to 1500 BCE. The Minoans were very advanced for their time, building large palaces, creating art, and trading across the seas. But around 1600 BCE, a huge volcanic eruption happened on the nearby island of Thera, today called Santorini. This was one of the most powerful eruptions in human history. It caused massive destruction and tsunamis that may have damaged the Minoans and led to their downfall. To later generations, stories of a great civilization destroyed by the sea could have grown into the legend of Atlantis. Other cultures also had stories about floods and destroyed cities. Egypt, where Plato said the story came from, had ancient myths about disasters caused by water. Greek mythology itself was full of tales about cities being destroyed because of the anger of gods. For example, the city of Troy was thought to be a legend for centuries until archaeologists discovered ruins that matched its description. This gives some people hope that Atlantis too may one day be found. Over time, many explorers and researchers have tried to locate Atlantis. Some believe it was in the Mediterranean near Crete or Santorini. Others think it was in the Atlantic Ocean, maybe near the Azores Islands. Some suggest the Caribbean, pointing to the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, which looks like a stone structure but is most likely natural. There are also theories that Atlantis was in Spain, North Africa, or even Antarctica. In southern Spain, satellite images have shown round patterns in marshlands that some think resemble Plato's description of Atlantis's circular city layout. Despite all these theories, no clear proof of Atlantis has ever been found. Geologists say that there is no sunken continent in the Atlantic. Archaeologists who study supposed ruins often find natural rock formations or later human structures, not evidence of a lost supercivilization. Scientists studying human history say there is no sign of a worldwide advanced culture existing in 9600 BCE, the date Plato gave. At that time, humans were still living mostly as hunters and gatherers, and farming was just beginning. Because of this, most historians and scientists agree that Atlantis was likely just a story made by Plato to share a moral lesson. In his writings, Athens stood for wisdom and balance, while Atlantis stood for pride and corruption. He may have used this imaginary story to show what happens when societies lose their values. Still, it is possible he based the story on smaller real events, like the fall of the Minoans or other disasters. Even if Atlantis was never real, it has captured human imagination like few other myths. Writers, artists, and filmmakers have used it in endless ways turning it into a symbol of mystery and wonder. In modern times, some people connect Atlantis with ideas about aliens, advanced lost technology, or hidden powers, though these claims are not supported by science. Movies and novels often show Atlantis as a magical lost world waiting to be rediscovered. So the question remains, could Atlantis have existed? Supporters point out that Plato gave very specific details. They argue that myths like the story of Troy turned out to have truth behind them, so maybe Atlantis could as well. Natural disasters have destroyed whole societies before, so perhaps one such story was remembered and passed down through time. On the other hand, critics say the timeline does not make sense, the details cannot be proven, and no evidence has been found despite centuries of searching. The most balanced explanation is that if Atlantis was based on anything real, it was not a giant lost continent, but a regional civilization, perhaps like the Minoans, destroyed by a natural disaster. Their advanced culture and sudden decline could have inspired later stories that grew into the Atlantis legend. What makes Atlantis so powerful as a story is that it combines mystery, warning, and hope. It warns about the dangers of greed and arrogance, but it also sparks dreams of discovering lost knowledge or forgotten worlds. Even though there is no proof that Atlantis existed, the story continues to inspire people to explore the seas, study history, and imagine possibilities beyond what we know. In the end, Atlantis is both a myth and a lesson. Whether or not it ever existed, it has become part of human culture and imagination. Its true power lies not in being proven real, but in the curiosity and questions it creates. People will likely always wonder if somewhere under the waves lies the memory of a great civilization, or if it was only a story told by a philosopher more than 2,000 years ago.